Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
So many different topics to get into. It's one of those Mondays where you wake up, you're excited, you can't wait to get on the air, and you wish the show was longer than just 2 hours. But we'll get to all of it in what was a very busy sports weekend as we transition to the month of April, as it's tomorrow or sometime this week. I don't even know. How many days are in March, Ron? I haven't even thought.
31.
31. So we still got some time, but you get the point. Opening day for baseball is coming up later in the week. So we'll get to all of it coming up and break down the NFL with 17 games, March Madness, so much more. But we start with this. Ron Cover got his second vaccination shot on Friday. So, Ron.
And I died.
Well, you clearly didn't because you're still here. But how do you feel?
Normal.
So you're one of those that had no symptoms.
My arm's sore.
Now, you know what?
My shoulder has been shot since last summer. So I keep telling them, go ahead and just keep shooting that arm. It already hurts anyways. I don't know if it's early arthritis or I have a torn rotator cuff. It could be either one.
Now, were you a Moderna guy?
Pfizer.
You were a Pfizer man. Okay.
Pfizer.
Now, let me ask you this, because my friend Dan, one of my ex-radio partner, Dan Budick, great friends, he got the vaccine as well. He got his first shot. And he told me the way he would describe the feeling in his arm after getting the shot was as if he got hit with a line drive, like a baseball line drive. And we now...
You mean when he actually got the shot?
When he got like the next day or so.
Okay.
Like it started to sore and swell up and whatnot. He said the pain is equivalent to a little soreness, like a black and blue that you don't actually have a black and blue, known as line drive syndrome. Would you say that you feel like your arm was hit by a baseball line drive?
Yeah, sure. Not that hard though.
Maybe like a
little soft liner up the middle.
Chopper.
Maybe it just took a bad hop on you.
Chopper up the middle, perhaps.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean what's weird is this shot. This time when they actually gave me the shot, I actually felt it in my arm, as opposed to last time I didn't even know. She's like, I'm done, and I was like, you haven't even given me the shot yet. Just different technique, I guess. But yeah, as far as anything, it feels like I took a liner off, but not even a hard one, not a real fast comebacker. Almost as if I was like the third baseman or shortstop that took a liner, as opposed to the pitcher who took a line drive off the shoulder.
2 weeks from this past Friday, you're a immune man to COVID.
Yeah, it's that. You know what it is? It's that realization, like, I made it. That's really what it's coming down to, is I made it. And you're starting to see things a little bit differently. Like you're like, oh, you know what? I can feel I don't have to worry about eating in a restaurant.
No doubt about that.
There's still some concern right now when you're sitting in a restaurant looking over your shoulder, looking around. But even though socially distanced in there, but now you're getting to that realization, like, I think I'm good.
You have done it. So I'm glad to hear it went well. We knew you were getting it sometime soon, and it went well. And line drive syndrome is the only thing you're dealing with. Not too shabby at all. On Friday, after our show signed off the air, we had what was a trade that can only be described as a blockbuster. And it was really two trades, right? You had the Dolphins trading back with the Niners moving up from 12 to 3. And then the Dolphins were like, we're going to take some of our draft capital. We're going to move up to 6 with the Eagles so we can get the player that we want at 6 that we could have had at 3, and in the process pick up some extra picks. So from a Dolphins standpoint, I believe it's brilliant. I also think this means for at least this year, they're sticking with Tua. Throw out the Deshaun Watson stuff with the lawsuits. It's impossible to trade for the guy right now. The Dolphins were not going to take a quarterback at 3. Now they can still get the player they want at 6 that they could have had at 3. So that's easy, look at it from the Dolphin perspective. From the Eagle perspective, I think they're kind of the team here that not a lot of people are focusing on because the attention's all on San Fran, and rightfully so. But the Eagles now will have 3 first-round picks essentially next year. So they could be all in for this year with Jalen Hurts. And at 12 in this year's first round, they probably can end up with Jalen Waddle. They'll get the best wide receiver left out of the big 3 plus Pitts. So who's ever left will likely be there at 12. There's some risk involved, but I think the Eagles have a pretty good feel for what the Giants will do, what the Cowboys will do in front of them. So they think they'll get a stud player at 12, and they accumulated another first-round pick by doing so. So they got 3 ones next year, which means if they don't figure it out with Hurts, they're in position next year to trade for Deshaun Watson, perhaps, but more likely trade up for a quarterback should they feel Hurts is not their guy. But the big story and the big takeaways from the Niners and Dolphins trade on Friday is the San Francisco 49ers are clearly taking a quarterback with that third pick, which now opens up about 1,000 hypothetical Jimmy Garoppolo trade scenarios between now and, well, really the NFL trade deadline if they don't move him by the draft. So there's a lot to unpack here with this deal. I was going to come on the air this morning and talk about how I felt like the 49ers were going to take Trey Lance with that pick. But after reading Peter King's Monday morning quarterback column, in which he notes that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are skipping the pro day for Justin Fields tomorrow to go see Mac Jones instead, whose pro day is at the same time as the Ohio State pro day, there seems to be a lot more smoke to this speculation that instead of Fields or Lance, maybe it's actually Mac Jones going third overall to the San Francisco 49ers, which when you say it out loud, it sounds wild to think that'd be the case. But hear me out. When you went on Twitter shortly after the deal, Chris Sims, who was a college teammate of Kyle Shanahan, knows Shanahan as well as anyone, casually puts out there that he thinks the Niners moving up to 3 is a move you make to try and get a pro-ready quarterback. And he mentioned Mac Jones as that pro-ready guy. So there's now 2 things of evidence I could directly point to the San Francisco 49ers moving up to 3, not for Fields, not for Lance, but because they want to get Mac Jones with that third overall pick. And that would be stunning. But I'll say this. If you trust Kyle Shanahan and you think he's the right guy for the job, you got to let him pick the quarterback he wants. He's earned that right. Look at some of the quarterbacks he's worked with that he's made look really good. Matt Ryan was an MVP under Shanahan. Kirk Cousins had his best seasons under Shanahan. Jimmy G, they want to move off of him. He got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. He made Nick Mullins look adequate. Like, if you think Kyle Shanahan's a great coach and an offensive genius like I do, then you have to know and you have to trust in Kyle Shanahan to get it right because he's earned that right. So that's how I would look at it from the Niners standpoint. But Mac Jones going 3, man, you say that out loud and it sounds crazy, but there's some evidence to it. I mean, all you need to know about the Mac Jones stuff is that, they clearly view him higher than Fields, because if they viewed Fields higher than Jones, they'd be going to watch Fields over Mac Jones. So I think it comes down to this. Do they want Trey Lance to sit behind Jimmy G because Trey Lance is not as pro-ready as Mac Jones? Or do they want Jones because they think he will give them a better chance to win? And even if they stick with Garoppolo, the guy's always hurt. They could plug in Mac Jones, and he could still win them some games. And then they can move on from Jimmy after the year or by the trade deadline, let's say. So there's a lot to unpack with this deal from the Niner perspective. And then the other aspect, the other team that's involved in this trade, and they didn't even do anything, it's just they're sitting there and they did nothing, which indicates they're doing something. That's the Jets. The Jets are drafting Zach Wilson, and they're going to trade Darnold at some point. All signs point to that. If the Jets wanted to move off the number 2 pick, they would have made that deal with San Fran. Now, could they still listen to offers from another team like Carolina, I suppose? Sure. But I bet you the Jets, if they were certainly interested in dealing the pick, they would have called up Carolina and said, hey, we have this deal on the table from San Fran. Make your best offer now or we're dealing the pick. That didn't happen. And I continue to hear from people I trust that the Jets love Zach Wilson and that he's going to be their guy. So if Zach Wilson's going to be the Jets guy at 2, all the evidence points to the Niners either going with Mac Jones or Trey Lance. I had NFL.com's Lance Zierlein on the show on Saturday, and I asked him point blank, which quarterback does he believe Kyle Shanahan will draft with that 3rd overall pick?
Kyle Shanahan believes he's found the quarterback that fits his offense, and I think it's going to be Trey Lance. But if it is Trey Lance, it certainly is not likely that he would be a guy you would hope would play this year. I mean, he clearly needs more seasoning, more work, more experience, but he fits what Kyle Shanahan does. And so, basically, I think what they have with Robert Saleh coming over, he's got some connections, obviously, with the Jets. or rather with the San Francisco 49ers. I think they feel fairly confident. They know what the Jets are going to do at 2. And because of that, I think they feel like they can move to 3 and either take their pick of Zach Wilson or whoever the other quarterback is, just in case a different quarterback went number 2. So that's basically making sure they get their quarterback of the future. So that just tells you that Jimmy Garoppolo, they know for a fact that he's not the answer.
So that was Lance Zierlein on my Saturday show. Lance, of course, with NFL.com as a draft analyst. If they want to win in 2021 and they believe Mac Jones is more ready than Trey Lance, don't be shocked if the Niners draft Mac Jones. And if you trust Kyle Shanahan, I'll say it again. If you believe in Shanahan, then you got to let him pick his guy. Because you know what? We all could sit from afar and say, oh, they gave up so much to get Mac Jones. But you know what? If Shanahan thinks Mac Jones is going to be a 15-year franchise caliber quarterback, then you let him get his guy and the picks don't matter down the line. Because if you're successful, you'll gladly trade away 2 ones for your future franchise quarterback. So I would have no issue if they took Mac Jones. I trust Kyle Shanahan. I put my faith in that guy to identify the right quarterback. So if it is Jones, I'll support it. Why not? Let Shanahan get his guy. And if it's Trey Lance, as Lance Zierlein thinks it will be, well, then I'll tell you what. I would hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo. I wouldn't trade him. If it's Trey Lance, I would hold on to Jimmy G. I talked about the Niners should just stick with Jimmy G, at the beginning of all this because I didn't see a realistic path to upgrade from Garoppolo when the Niners were picking 12. But now that they moved up to 3, we know they're going quarterback. But if I was the Niners, I would just hold on to Jimmy G for now. Why trade him? If you get blown away with an offer, right? New England offers you the 15th overall pick. I think you could do it then. But why be in a rush to trade him? Start Garoppolo. You could win games with the guy. You'll be in contention for the playoffs if he stays healthy. And you know what? The guy's always hurt. So if you draft Trey Lance, he might end up playing this year anyway. That's the issue with the Niners. I think they like Jimmy, but the reason why they moved up because they don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is durable enough to be their guy long term. So what I would do if I'm the San Francisco 49ers is I will shop Garoppolo, who's got a no trade, by the way, which makes things complicated. But if my decision is I'm taking Lance, I'm keeping Jimmy G. If I go Mac Jones under the premise that he's more NFL ready and he could be our guy, then you know what? I'd listen to offers on Jimmy G and I'd make that deal. But before all this, I was a big component of improve the backup spot if you're the Niners. So at least if Jimmy goes down, your season's not screwed like it's been the last couple of years. But this trade, I mean, man, so many different angles to look at it from. So many teams involved. So many decisions will be impacted going forward. We know San Fran's going quarterback. That impacts the rest of the draft. We know Miami is committed to Tua as their guy. That impacts the rest of the draft. The Jimmy Garoppolo trade scenarios are out and about. New England, Carolina, Denver, name a team. They're going to be linked to a potential Jimmy Garoppolo trade. And then the Jets, by doing nothing, they told us all we needed to know. It's Zach Wilson at 2. All signs point to that. And Sam Darnold will be traded at some point. Now, I'll throw out a quick Sam Darnold thought here as we wrap up this segment. I keep hearing Denver being a team that makes sense for Darnold, and I agree. If I had to pick one team, I'd go with the Denver Broncos. But you know what this trade really does? You know which team kind of loses here based on what the Niners did? The Carolina Panthers at 8. Because if you look at the draft, Lawrence goes 1, Wilson goes 2. Niners are going to take, let's say, Mac Jones or Trey Lance, number 3. A lot of people think Atlanta's going quarterback at 4. So the top 4 guys go off the board right away. Carolina wanted Deshaun Watson. Doesn't look like that's going to happen for anyone. Carolina wants to be aggressive for a guy. The problem is they're running out of trade partners. Jacksonville's not moving. Doesn't look like the Jets are moving. Certainly the Niners aren't moving after they gave up a haul to get to number 3. And you might say, well, Jake, what if Carolina just trades with Atlanta? Atlanta's not helping the Carolina Panthers get their quarterback in the same division. So Carolina's kind of stuck. So I say all that to say this. Look out for Sam Darnold going to Carolina. Maybe it's a second-round pick. Bringing some competition for Teddy Bridgewater. Sam's just 23. If you believe in Matt Rule, if you believe in Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, then guess what? maybe Sam Darnold could finally be the quarterback that most Jet fans thought he would be when they took him 3rd overall. Long segment, but certainly a worthy trade to break it all down. We'll take a quick break and continue. The number to call to get involved this morning, 800-224-2004. That's the number to weigh in. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for subscribing to the channel. We certainly appreciate it. Quick break, and we're back. We'll talk about the NFL going to 17 games and more on this massive trade that impacts so many teams when we return. Jake Asman with you here on a Monday morning. This is the Jake Asman Show right here on Sports Map Radio.
The middle.